April 10th, 2018. Mark Zuckerberg faces Congress. Facebook is dying. Advertisers are fleeing. Billions in market value gone. Then he says four words that change everything. Four words that sound like surrender, but are actually the most sophisticated defense strategy ever deployed in corporate warfare. I'll decode what he really meant and how he weaponized vulnerability to turn his greatest scandal into unstoppable growth. Before Mark Zuckerberg became the youngest self made billionaire in history, before he controlled the digital lives of 3 billion people, before he sat in front of Congress defending an empire built on data, he was just a kid who couldn't understand why people didn't work the way computers did. Dobbs Ferry, New York, 1984. Mark Elliott Zuckerberg is born into comfort but not extravagance. His father, Edward, runs a dental practice attached to their home. His mother, Karen, is a psychiatrist, upper middle class, educated, stable, the kind of childhood that produces doctors and lawyers, not revolutionaries who reshape human communication. But Mark is different from the beginning. Obsessively different. While other kids are playing outside, Mark is in his father's office, staring at the computer screen like it holds secrets the physical world refuses to reveal. He's not playing games, he's studying patterns, logic, systems. At 6 years old, he's already writing basic code. By 11, he's built his first software program, a messaging system his father uses to communicate between the dental office and the house. He calls it ZuckNet. Primitive, clunky, but functional. His parents see a prodigy. What they don't see is the isolation forming beneath the surface. Mark doesn't connect with people the way normal children do. Social cues confuse him. Small talk feels like wasted processing power. But code makes sense. Code follows rules. Code does exactly what you tell it to do. No ambiguity, no emotion, just pure, predictable logic. This is the first pattern that will define everything. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't want to understand people, he wants to systematize them. His parents hire a private computer tutor, David Newman, who later describes the young Zuckerberg as a prodigy who absorbs programming languages the way most kids absorb cartoon plots. Mark tears through C++, then Java, then everything Newman can throw at him. By 13, he's beyond what his tutor can teach. High school, Phillips Exeter Academy. Elite, prestigious, the kind of place that breeds future senators and CEOs. Mark arrives with something to prove, but also something to hide. The gnawing awareness that he doesn't fit. He's brilliant, everyone knows it, but brilliance without social grace is just another form of isolation. He captains the fencing team, not because he loves the sport, but because it's strategic, calculated, one-on-one combat that rewards planning over emotion. He studies classics, ancient Greek, Latin. He's fascinated by Augustus Caesar, the emperor who transformed Rome through careful manipulation of perception and power. This obsession will echo decades later, but the real Mark Zuckerberg emerges in his senior year when he builds a program called Synapse. It's a music player that uses artificial intelligence to learn your listening habits and predict what you want to hear next. Sounds normal now. In 1999, it's borderline magic. Microsoft wants to buy it. AOL wants to buy it. They offer him close to $1 million in job offers to join their companies. Mark is 17 years old, holding a lottery ticket most people never see in their entire lives. He says no, not because he doesn't want money, but because selling Synapse means giving up control. And control, Mark is beginning to understand, is the only currency that actually matters. Money can be taken, power can be lost. But if you control the system itself, you control everything. He releases Synapse as freeware instead, gives it away. This decision baffles everyone around him, but it's not generosity. It's a calculated experiment. He wants to see how far his creation can spread, how many people will use it, how behavior can be shaped without monetary incentive. The results are intoxicating, hundreds of thousands of downloads. Users become addicted to the predictive algorithm. Mark watches human behavior bend toward his code. This is the second pattern. Zuckerberg doesn't want money, he wants scale. He wants reach. He wants to build systems so deeply embedded into people's lives that they become invisible infrastructure. Fall 2002. Mark arrives at Harvard. He's 19, socially awkward, arrogant in the way only the truly intelligent can be. He joins the Alpha Epsilon Pi fraternity, not because he likes parties, but because he's studying human networking the way anthropologists study tribal behavior. His dorm room in Kirkland House becomes a laboratory. While other freshmen are getting drunk and figuring out their majors, Mark is coding obsessively, building small programs, testing ideas, watching how Harvard students interact with digital systems. He builds Course Match, a program that lets students see what classes their friends are taking. It spreads across campus in days. Then he builds Face Mash, And this is where the pattern breaks into something darker. October 2003, late night. Mark is drunk and angry after a girl rejects him. He hacks into Harvard's student ID database, pulls photos of female students, and creates a website where users vote on who's hotter. It's cruel, misogynistic, a violation of privacy that gets him hauled in front of the Harvard Administration Board. The university considers expulsion. Mark issues a lukewarm apology, but privately, he's learned something valuable. In 48 hours, FaceMash crashed Harvard's network because 22,000 photos were viewed by 450 users. 22,000 views in 48 hours. He'd accidentally discovered the psychology of viral engagement. People don't just want to consume content. They want to judge, compare, and rank. They want to feel superior. They want their opinions to matter in a quantifiable way. The administration punishes him with probation. But Mark sees something else entirely. He sees that Harvard students are desperate for a digital system that lets them surveil each other, that the desire for social hierarchy is so powerful it overrides privacy concerns, and that controversy creates engagement faster than anything else. Most people would learn to be more careful. Mark learns to be more strategic. Winter 2004, three Harvard seniors approach Mark with an idea. Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss and Divya Narendra. They want to build Harvard Connection, a social networking site for elite universities. They need a programmer. Mark agrees to help, but he doesn't help. He stalls. He makes excuses. Behind the scenes, he's building his own version, faster, simpler, better. On February 4th, 2004, Mark launches the Facebook from his dorm room. No permission, no partnership, just a unilateral decision that within 24 hours registers 1,200 Harvard students. The Winklevoss twins are furious. They scream betrayal. They threaten lawsuits. Mark responds with something that will become legendary in Silicon Valley. A series of instant messages to a friend where he calls them dumb fucks for trusting him with their idea. This isn't just arrogance, it's philosophy. In Mark's world, ideas are worthless. Execution is everything. The Winklevoss twins had an idea for months and did nothing. Mark built it in weeks and captured the market. To him, they deserve to lose. The lawsuit will haunt him for years, but he doesn't care. The Facebook is spreading like a virus. Within 1 month, half of Harvard's undergraduate population has registered, then Yale, then Stanford, then Columbia. Mark drops out of Harvard after his sophomore year. His parents are horrified. He's throwing away an Ivy League education for a website that makes no money. But Mark sees what they can't. He's not building a website, he's building the infrastructure of human identity itself. He moves to Palo Alto with his roommate Dustin Moskovitz and $8,000 in startup capital from Eduardo Saverin. They rent a small house. It's summer 2004. Mark is 20 years old, running a platform with 100,000 users, and he's just getting started. But the early success masks something more sinister, a ruthlessness forming beneath the surface. Eduardo Saverin, his co-founder and CFO, starts getting pushed out. Equity gets diluted. Decisions get made without consultation. By the time Eduardo realizes what's happening, his 30% stake has been reduced to less than 10%. Another lawsuit, another betrayal, another pattern. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't build partnerships, he builds dependencies. And when those dependencies are no longer useful, he eliminates them with the cold precision of someone pruning dead branches from a tree. By the end of 2004, Facebook has 1 million users, no revenue model, no clear path to profitability, just exponential growth and a 20-year-old CEO who believes he's discovered something profound about human nature, that people will trade privacy for connection, autonomy for convenience, and truth for belonging. The early failures taught him systems thinking. The early successes taught him that scale solves everything. And the early betrayals taught him that loyalty is a liability in the face of vision. Mark Zuckerberg isn't building a social network. He's building a behavior modification system disguised as a way to connect with friends. And by the time the world figures out what he's actually created, it'll be too late to stop him. The foundation is set. The patterns are established. And the boy who couldn't understand people is about to become the man who controls how billions of them see reality itself. By 2005, Facebook isn't just growing, it's metastasizing. But Mark Zuckerberg has a problem that would destroy most 21-year-old CEOs, but one that reveals the calculated predator lurking beneath the hoodie and sneakers. Peter Thiel sees it first. Thiel, the PayPal co-founder and venture capitalist with a reputation for spotting patterns others miss, writes Facebook a check for $500,000. It's September 2004. But the money comes with something more valuable than capital. It comes with a philosophy that will shape everything Mark does next. Thiel believes in monopolies, not the illegal kind, the invisible kind, the kind where You dominate so completely that competition becomes irrelevant, where you don't just win the market, you become the market. And he sees in Mark something rare, a founder willing to sacrifice short term profits for long term control. Most social networks in 2005 are trying to monetize immediately. Friendster is plastered with ads. MySpace is cutting deals with every advertiser who will pay. They're optimizing for quarterly revenue, chasing the quick exit, building businesses. Mark is building an empire. He keeps Facebook clean, minimal ads, simple interface, obsessive focus on user experience. Wall Street analysts call it naive. Venture capitalists call it reckless. Mark calls it patience because he understands something they don't. If you own the attention, you can monetize it later. But if you monetize too early, you'll never own the attention. Spring 2006, Facebook opens to high school students, then work networks, then anyone over 13 with an email address. Each expansion is calculated, methodical. Mark isn't just adding users, he's studying how networks form, how information spreads, how human behavior changes at different scales. The data he's collecting is staggering. Who talks to whom, how often, what makes people click, what makes them share, what makes them come back. Facebook isn't just a social network, it's the largest psychology experiment in human history, running in real time with participants who have no idea they're being studied. September 2006. Yahoo offers Mark $1 billion to buy Facebook. $1 billion. Mark is 22 years old. Most of his executive team is pushing him to sell. His investors are salivating. $1 billion for a website that's barely generating revenue. It's generational wealth. Financial security forever. The smart play. Mark says no, not maybe. Not let me think about it. Just no. The room goes silent. His CFO thinks he's insane. His investors panic, but Mark sees what they can't. Yahoo is dying. Google is rising. And the future belongs to whoever controls the social graph, the invisible map of human relationships that determines how information, ideas, and influence flow through society. Selling Facebook for $1 billion would be like selling electricity in 1885. Sure, it's valuable now, but wait 10 years and it'll be the foundation of civilization itself. This is the moment Mark transforms from talented programmer to ruthless strategist. He's not building a company to exit. He's building infrastructure to control human communication. And you don't sell infrastructure. You leverage it until it becomes so essential that society can't function without it. The decision costs him relationships. Investors pull out. Executives quit. Mark doesn't care. He's playing a longer game than anyone else in the room. November 2007, Facebook platform launches. This is the moment everything changes. Mark opens Facebook to third-party developers, letting them build apps that live inside the Facebook ecosystem. Farmville, Mafia Wars, thousands of games and apps that keep users trapped inside the platform for hours. But it's not about the apps, it's about the data. Every third-party developer who builds on Facebook platform is feeding information back into Mark's system. What you like, who you know, what you click, what you buy. Facebook isn't just tracking your behavior anymore. It's tracking your entire digital life. The growth becomes exponential. By 2008, Facebook hits 100 million users. By 2009, 300 million. By 2010, 500 million. The scale is incomprehensible. Mark Zuckerberg, at 26 years old, controls a platform larger than most countries. But with scale comes scrutiny. Privacy advocates start asking questions. Journalists start investigating. The terms of service keep changing, always expanding what Facebook can do with your data, always tightening Facebook's control. Users complain, but they don't leave because Mark has figured out the most important truth about digital platforms. If all your friends are there, you can't leave without becoming socially invisible. It's not a choice. It's a trap disguised as connection. May 2012, Facebook goes public. The IPO is valued at $104 billion. Mark is 28 years old and worth $19 billion on paper. He shows up to Wall Street in a hoodie. It's not rebellion, it's theater. He's sending a message, I don't need you. You need me. But the IPO is a disaster. The stock price plummets. Investors lose billions in the first months. Mark is pilloried in the press, called arrogant, incompetent, a one-hit wonder who got lucky. Analysts predict Facebook will be the next MySpace, a cautionary tale about platforms that fail to evolve. Mark doesn't panic. He doubles down. He shifts Facebook's entire infrastructure to mobile. It's 2012, and most tech companies are still treating mobile as an afterthought. Mark sees it as the future. He forces his entire engineering team to use Android phones, to feel the pain of Facebook's terrible mobile experience, to understand that if they don't fix it, Someone else will build the mobile social network and Facebook will become irrelevant. The transformation is brutal. Engineers work 100-hour weeks. Features get stripped. The entire code base gets rebuilt. But within 18 months, Facebook's mobile experience goes from worst in class to best in class. And Mark does something that cements his reputation as a strategic killer. He starts acquiring competitors. April 2012, Instagram, $1 billion for a 13-person company with zero revenue. The tech press calls it insane. Mark calls it insurance. Instagram is growing faster than Facebook did at the same stage. If left alone, it could become a competitor. So Mark buys it, keeps the founders happy for a few years, then slowly integrates it into Facebook's infrastructure until it's impossible to separate. February 2014, WhatsApp, $19 billion, the most expensive acquisition in tech history at the time. Again, the press screams bubble. Again, Mark sees something else. WhatsApp has 600 million users who communicate outside of Facebook's ecosystem. That's 600 million people whose conversations Facebook can't analyze, whose relationships Facebook can't monetize, whose attention Facebook doesn't control. Mark doesn't buy WhatsApp for what it is, he buys it to eliminate what it could become: a private communication network beyond Facebook's reach. The pattern is clear now. Mark isn't competing in the market, he's buying the market. Every potential competitor gets acquired or crushed. Snapchat refuses to sell, so Facebook clones their features and integrates them into Instagram. Twitter gains momentum, so Facebook tweaks its algorithm to make short form updates more prominent. This isn't innovation, it's systematic elimination of alternatives. By 2016, Facebook has 1.8 billion users. Nearly every human being with internet access and disposable income is on the platform. The advertising engine is generating tens of billions in revenue. Mark's personal wealth has crossed $60 billion. He's won, but he's also created something dangerous. The 2016 US presidential election exposes the dark side of what Mark built. Russian operatives use Facebook to spread disinformation. Fake news spreads faster than real news. The algorithm optimized for engagement prioritizes outrage over truth. Facebook becomes a weapon for psychological warfare, and Mark either doesn't notice or doesn't care. Publicly, Facebook issues statements about community and connection. Privately, the growth team is still optimizing for addiction. Internal documents will later reveal that Facebook researchers knew the platform was harmful to teenage mental health, knew it was being used to incite violence in developing countries, knew it was polarizing democracies, and decided that fixing these problems would hurt engagement metrics. Mark tells his team to focus on growth, always growth, because growth solves everything. Growth means more data. More data means better targeting. Better targeting means higher ad prices. Higher ad prices mean more profit. More profit means more power. The machine is working exactly as designed. March 2018, everything breaks. The Cambridge Analytica scandal explodes into public consciousness. A political consulting firm harvested data from 87 million Facebook users without consent and used it to target political advertising during the 2016 election. The data was obtained through a third-party app, but it exposed something more fundamental. Facebook's entire business model depends on extracting, analyzing, and selling access to user data in ways most users don't understand and didn't consent to. The media firestorm is instant and devastating. Hashtag delete Facebook trends globally. European regulators launch investigations. The Federal Trade Commission opens inquiries. Congressional hearings are scheduled. Facebook's stock price craters, losing billions in market value in days. Mark goes into hiding. His PR team crafts carefully worded apologies. His lawyers prepare defenses, but the world is demanding something Mark has never given: accountability. For 14 years, Mark Zuckerberg has operated Facebook as a benevolent dictatorship. He controls the majority of voting shares through a dual-class stock structure. He can't be fired. He can't be overruled. He's built a corporate structure where he has absolute power, and he's wielded it to prioritize growth over safety, profit over privacy, scale over responsibility. Now, Congress wants answers. April 10th, 2018. Mark Zuckerberg walks into the Hart Senate office building in Washington, D.C. He's wearing a dark suit instead of his trademark hoodie. He looks younger than his 33 years, nervous, uncomfortable. Behind him sit lawyers, PR consultants, and executives who've spent weeks preparing him for this moment. This is the most important performance of his life. Fail here, and Facebook faces regulation that could break up the company. Fail here, and his empire crumbles. Fail here, and Mark Zuckerberg transforms from tech visionary to cautionary tale. The cameras are rolling. 100 senators are watching. The world is waiting, and Mark is about to say 4 words that will change everything. The hearing room is silent, except for the clicking of camera shutters. Senator after senator has grilled Mark for hours. Questions about data privacy, questions about Russian interference, questions about whether Facebook is a monopoly, whether it's too powerful, whether Mark Zuckerberg himself has become a threat to democracy. Mark's answers have been technical, evasive, robotic. Senator, we run ads becomes a meme within hours. He's struggling, sweating. The kid who built an empire by understanding systems is failing to understand the one system that matters right now: human emotion. Then Senator Dick Durbin asked the question that changes everything. Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night? The room tenses. Mark freezes. He knows it's a trap. Everyone knows it's a trap. The question is designed to expose the hypocrisy. Facebook demands radical transparency from its users, while Mark himself lives behind walls of privacy and security. Mark could deflect. He could refuse. He could cite security concerns. Any of those responses would be legally sound, but they would also prove Durbin's point. They would confirm that privacy matters, that Mark knows it matters, and that Facebook's entire business model depends on denying users the privacy Mark demands for himself. So, Mark does something unexpected, something his lawyers definitely told him not to do. He smiles, just slightly. Then he says 4 words, "No, I would not." The room erupts, not in anger, in nervous laughter. It's disarming, honest, vulnerable. For the first time in 10 hours of testimony, Mark Zuckerberg sounds human. He's admitted what everyone already knew, that privacy is valuable, that no one wants their personal information broadcast, and that there's a fundamental tension between Facebook's business model and human dignity. But here's what most people miss. Here's the genius buried in those 4 words. Mark didn't apologize. He didn't promise to change. He didn't commit to protecting user privacy. He just acknowledged the obvious. And by acknowledging it, he diffused it. He transformed a damning accusation into a moment of relatability. He weaponized vulnerability. Because the truth is, Mark knows exactly what he's doing. Those 4 words, "No, I would not," aren't surrender. They're misdirection. They let him control the narrative by appearing to give ground while actually conceding nothing. The media coverage shifts immediately. Headlines go from Zuckerberg grilled by Congress to Zuckerberg's most human moment. Clips of the exchange go viral. Public sentiment softens. Mark's favorability ratings improve. And most importantly, the momentum for serious regulation evaporates. Congress holds more hearings. The European Union implements GDPR. Facebook pays a $5 billion fine to the FTC, the largest penalty in FTC history. But nothing fundamental changes. Facebook doesn't get broken up. Mark doesn't lose control. The business model continues exactly as before because Mark understands something most people don't. You don't fight regulatory pressure by resisting it. You absorb it, you take the hit, pay the fine, adjust the PR messaging, and keep building. Regulation becomes just another cost of doing business. And when you're generating tens of billions in annual profit, you can afford any fine the government throws at you. By 2019, Facebook is generating $70 billion in annual revenue. Mark's personal wealth has recovered to $75 billion. The Cambridge Analytica scandal fades from headlines. New users keep joining, advertisers keep spending, the machine keeps running. But Mark isn't satisfied with just Facebook anymore. He's thinking bigger, longer, more ambitious. October 2021, Mark announces the company is changing its name from Facebook to Meta. The rebrand is about more than marketing. It's about escape. Facebook has become toxic, associated with misinformation, mental health crises, election interference, and genocide in Myanmar. The name itself carries baggage. So Mark does what he always does when faced with a problem he can't code his way out of. He changes the system. Meta isn't about social networking. It's about the metaverse, a virtual reality future where billions of people work, play, and live inside digital worlds that Mark controls. It's the ultimate expression of his original vision, not just connecting people, but replacing physical reality itself with a digital infrastructure he owns. Wall Street hates it. The stock price collapses. Meta loses hundreds of billions in market value. Investors scream that Mark is wasting money on science fiction while the core business deteriorates. TikTok is stealing young users. Apple's privacy changes are devastating ad targeting. Meta's Reality Labs division is losing $10 billion a year building hardware almost nobody wants. Mark doesn't care. He's not optimizing for quarterly earnings anymore. He's playing a 30-year game. And in that game, Whoever builds the infrastructure of virtual reality controls the future of human experience. But while Mark is focused on the metaverse, something else is happening. The real empire, the one he already built, is printing money at an incomprehensible scale. Let's talk about the actual numbers because this is where the story gets truly dark. As of 2024, Meta Platforms generates approximately $135 billion in annual revenue. Almost all of it, 98%, comes from advertising. But this isn't traditional advertising. This is behavioral modification disguised as marketing. Every action you take on Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp feeds an algorithm designed to predict your behavior, what you'll click, what you'll buy, what you'll believe. Meta has built psychological profiles of 3 billion people with terrifying accuracy. It knows when you're depressed before you do. It knows when you're about to break up with your partner. It knows your political views, sexual orientation, health concerns, financial situation, and deepest insecurities. Then it sells access to that information to advertisers who use it to manipulate you into buying things you don't need, believing things that aren't true, and behaving in ways that benefit them. This is the machine. And Mark Zuckerberg is the architect. His personal compensation structure is modest by CEO standards, around $27 million in 2023, mostly in security costs, but that's irrelevant. Mark owns 13% of Meta with nearly 60% voting control through the dual class share structure. His net worth fluctuates between $90 and $180 billion depending on Meta's stock price. But the wealth isn't the point. Power is the point. Mark controls how 3 billion people communicate. He controls what information they see. He controls which ideas spread and which ideas die. He controls the infrastructure of human connection itself. That's not wealth. That's sovereignty. The empire now spans 4 platforms. Facebook, still the largest social network on earth with over 3 billion monthly users. Instagram, which has become the dominant platform for visual culture and influence, with 2 billion users. WhatsApp, the world's most popular messaging app with 2 billion users. And Threads, Meta's Twitter competitor, growing rapidly toward hundreds of millions of users. Each platform operates semi-independently but feeds into the same algorithmic core, the same data collection, the same targeting infrastructure, the same business model. You can delete Facebook, but if you use Instagram or WhatsApp, Mark still has you. You're still in the system, still being analyzed, still being monetized. The income sources are diversified now, but they all trace back to attention. Advertising generates $131 billion. The Metaverse division loses billions but represents the future bet. Payments and financial services are growing. Meta is positioning itself to become a bank, a currency, and a government rolled into one corporate entity, and Mark is funding it all with profit margins that would make oil companies jealous. Meta operates at roughly 35% profit margins. For context, that means for every dollar of revenue, 35 cents is pure profit. Last year alone, Meta generated over $40 billion in net income, $40 billion in profit from a platform that's free to use, from a service that produces nothing physical, just data extraction and behavioral manipulation at a scale never before seen in human history. But here's where the story gets truly bizarre. Mark is also trying to be a philanthropist. In 2015, Mark and his wife, Priscilla Chan, pledged to give away 99% of their Facebook shares over their lifetimes through the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. It sounds generous, noble, except the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative isn't a charity, it's a limited liability company, which means Mark maintains control of the assets, pays no taxes on the transfer, and can invest in for-profit companies while still claiming philanthropic intent. It's the ultimate optimization. Mark gets credit for giving away his fortune while maintaining control, avoiding taxes, and positioning himself as a benevolent tech lord rather than a surveillance capitalist. The Chan Zuckerberg Initiative focuses on education, science, and criminal justice reform. They've donated billions, built research facilities, funded disease eradication projects, and Mark genuinely seems to believe he's helping humanity. But there's a cognitive dissonance at the core. Mark is trying to cure the world's problems with money extracted from a system that creates those problems. Facebook's algorithm promotes outrage, division, and misinformation because those emotions drive engagement. Engagement drives ad revenue. Ad revenue funds philanthropy. So Mark is essentially profiting from social decay, then using a fraction of those profits to fund initiatives that address the symptoms while leaving the disease untouched. It's the perfect closed loop, the snake eating its own tail, and Mark either doesn't see the contradiction or has decided it doesn't matter. The key lessons from Mark Zuckerberg's empire are uncomfortable but undeniable. First, scale solves everything. If you grow fast enough, you become too big to fail, too big to regulate, too big to compete with. Size becomes its own moat. Second, control the infrastructure, not the content. Mark doesn't care what you post on Facebook. He cares that you post on Facebook. Platforms are more powerful than products because platforms can't be replicated once they reach critical mass. Third, data is the oil of the 21st century. Whoever controls the most comprehensive behavioral data controls the economy, not through manufacturing or resources, but through prediction and manipulation of human choice. Fourth, vulnerability is a tool. When Mark said, "No, I would not," he turned his greatest weakness into a strategic weapon. Admitting the obvious disarms critics more effectively than denial. Fifth, play longer games than your competitors. Everyone else was optimizing for quarterly earnings. Mark was optimizing for civilizational control. You win by operating on a different timescale. And sixth, perhaps most important, monopolies don't get broken up if they're invisible. Facebook isn't a monopoly on social networking. It's an infrastructure provider. The government breaks up oil companies, not the companies that lay pipelines. Mark positioned Facebook not as a product, but as essential infrastructure, and infrastructure doesn't get dismantled. But beneath all the strategy and success is a question that haunts everything Mark has built. What does it mean to connect the world if the connection makes people more lonely, more anxious, more polarized? What does it mean to build a platform for community if that platform destroys communities? What does it mean to bring people together if the algorithm that powers it profits from tearing them apart? Mark has created the most powerful tool for human connection in history. And simultaneously, he's created one of the most effective engines of isolation, manipulation, and social decay ever conceived. Internal documents leaked by whistleblowers show Meta's own research confirming the damage. Instagram makes teenage girls feel worse about their bodies. Facebook's algorithm amplifies extremism because extremism drives engagement. WhatsApp is used to coordinate violence in developing nations. Meta knows all of this, has known for years, and has consistently chosen growth over safety because that's what the system demands. Public companies must grow or die. Algorithms must optimize for engagement or become obsolete. Founders must maximize shareholder value or get replaced. Mark built a machine, and now the machine runs itself. Even if Mark wanted to make Facebook less addictive, less divisive, less harmful, doing so would reduce engagement, decrease ad revenue, tank the stock price, and invite activist investors to force him out. He's trapped in the very system he created. The four words that saved Facebook in 2018, "No, I would not," represented a moment of honesty, but they also represented a deeper truth. Mark Zuckerberg has built an empire on the principle that privacy doesn't matter, that data extraction is acceptable, that behavioral manipulation is just good business. And he's right. It is good business, insanely profitable business, world-changing business. It's also corrosive to human dignity, autonomy, and democracy. Mark Zuckerberg isn't a villain. He's something more complicated and more dangerous. He's a true believer who built a system that serves its own logic rather than human flourishing. He set out to connect the world and succeeded. And in succeeding, he discovered that connection at scale doesn't create understanding. It creates tribalism. It doesn't bring people together. It sorts them into competing filter bubbles. It doesn't spread truth. It amplifies whatever generates the strongest emotional response. The empire Mark built will outlast him. Meta's platforms are woven into the fabric of modern life. 3 billion people use them daily. Entire economies depend on them. Governments communicate through them. Revolutions organize on them. You can't shut down Facebook without collapsing a significant portion of global communication infrastructure, which means Mark has achieved something almost no one in history has managed. He's made himself and his creation essential to civilization itself. That's the real genius. That's the real horror. Mark Zuckerberg sat in front of Congress in 2018 and said 4 words that saved his company. But those 4 words didn't save us. They saved the system that extracts our attention, manipulates our behavior, and profits from our psychological vulnerabilities. No, I would not. Neither would any of us. But we do it anyway. Every day, every scroll, every click, every moment we spend inside the machine Mark built. And that's how you build an empire worth $1 trillion, not by forcing people, but by making the cage so comfortable, so convenient, so socially necessary that we lock ourselves inside and call it connection. Mark Zuckerberg is now 39 years old. His empire spans the globe. His wealth exceeds that of most nations. His influence shapes elections, cultural trends, and the mental health of billions, and he's just getting started. The metaverse bet is a gamble that virtual reality will replace physical reality as the primary domain of human experience. If Mark is right, if the next generation grows up living more in digital worlds than physical ones, Meta won't just be a platform, it'll be the platform, the only one that matters. The boy who couldn't understand people built a system that understands them better than they understand themselves. What the programmer who struggled with social cues created the infrastructure of social life itself. The 20-year-old who turned down $1 billion now controls a company worth 800 billion. Mark Zuckerberg took 4 words, "No, I would not," and turned a crisis into a victory. He weaponized vulnerability, absorbed regulatory pressure, maintained absolute control, and kept building the machine that's reshaping human consciousness itself. That's not just business strategy, that's empire, that's power. That's what happens when someone who sees people as systems gains control of the system itself. And the most terrifying part, he's not done yet.